So I've kind of had this re-approach how I play this instrument to really get at the beautiful quality it makes, which is kind of a great metaphor, right?
I'm looking at the silver lining. You know, it's like nature is coming back. My neighborhood looks like it's straight out of the 50s. People are standing in their yards talking to each other.
You know, we have to have these personal practices to sort of unleash our potential to create whatever we're doing that brings people together, that allows for this greater concept. It's kind of a spiritual practice.
Hi, this is Mish Hancock, and you are listening to MichMash, a place where I get to talk to the weird, wacky, wonderful people of this world, people I adore and want to know more about. Today, my guest is Dan Rubright. Dan is a jazz guitarist and composer from St. Louis, Missouri. He regularly works with the finest musicians to create his own brand of vibrant, contemporary, sophisticated, and inviting music. Hello, Dan.
Hello, nice to be here with you.
I know. So we're doing a whole new thing right now. Everybody is sheltering in place
Yes.
as we are recording this. So you are at your house. I'm at
Yep.
my house. We've got Shock City in the middle. Our audio engineer, Paul, is in the background making magical audio and video things happen. It looks like we're live on Facebook, so that's working. Look how cool we are.
Great. Yes, indeed.
So how have you been during this time?
I've been doing well. I think all things considered, we're staying lively and everybody's in good health. So all things considered, pretty well. Thanks. How about you? How have you been doing?
Actually good. I mean, I'm in, my business is in the digital space, so it's crazy busy. We have people that have either figured out that they better get to the digital space, or those where their business is down. It's building business right now, building connections and what have you. So we're blessed that we're in a space that's really busy right now.
Yeah, that's great. It's kind of interesting. Everybody's sort of in the tech business now.
Yeah. Whether
Like
you
before,
like it
we
or
were sort of
not.
the underground, and now all of a sudden it's like everybody's underground. So, all these places are selling out webcams, and it's like a whole new world now.
Yes. But hopefully we get to get out at some point.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because it feels weird. It feels
It's
weird
weird.
to not be
Yeah,
out and
it's
about.
weird. It's weird, and yep.
I miss hugging people, honestly.
Yeah.
That's my big thing. I get energy from people. And
Absolutely.
and so I miss everybody.
I
Well,
know
all right.
that part.
So what are you doing now as a musician? Hanging out at home? Are you writing? Are you getting all creative and writing more songs, or what are you doing?
Yeah, actually I am. I've been writing every day and exploring kind of new sound things with it. What I figured out is that it's such a good guitar that it really requires a whole different approach to play it, in terms of having to press your fingers down and like really let the strings ring, because it's got a fantastic sustain. So I've kind of had this re-approach how I play this instrument to really get at the beautiful quality it makes, which is kind of a great metaphor, right? Because before, in the sort of fast-paced world, I thought, I don't know about this guitar. I'm not sure it's really, working for me. But the problem was I was just playing it like I was playing my electric guitar, and didn't really have the time to put into it to see how I could really make it sing. And so I've been exploring that. It's not easy, actually. It's like I really have to sort of use different muscles and be very patient with it. But I'm kind of thrilled with where it's going. So there'll be more coming with the acoustic guitar in the future, definitely.
So that is so interesting, because as a person that, I don't play guitar, I would never have thought. And so so you're thinking, because of this pause,
Yes.
this slow down time,
Right.
that kind of, it's almost like slowing down caught you up with learning something new.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, you never know where an opportunity might come. So,
How interesting.
in my jazz work, I think this too. Over the last few years, I've also been sort of broadening how I express myself as a musician. And I've been doing a lot of writing and presenting of some of my ideas in terms of jazz as a metaphor, and
Right.
how people can learn about jazz as a metaphor. There's so many things we think about that if we sort of translate it for whether people in their lives or at work. There's a lot of insights that we can use that are like, oh, I never thought of it like that before.
Right.
Yeah, right. So this is kind of strange. We're sort of in a time of improvisation, if you will,
No,
where, you know,
that's
the
a
quote,
good word
the
for
music
this.
that we're used to playing, like it's not there anymore. So now
Right.
we sort of have to make up our own melodies and our own, like, you know, what's there? What can we do? How can we make this work? So it kind of fits into a lot of what I've been thinking about and talking about lately.
Well, this is such a point in time, and I have to think that the creative people of the world, there's a lot of things going on right now that are going to come out later that we'll all just be like, oh yeah, that came out because of, right?
Yes. Yes.
Um, and in this experience that we're having, I mean, globally, this isn't affecting just one country. This is a global, it's I'm amazed at the things I'm seeing. So when I look at the silver lining things, because we all know the horrible things, just turn on the
Right.
news. Um, but when I'm looking at the silver lining, it's like nature is coming back. My
Hmm.
neighborhood looks like it's straight out of the 50s. People are standing in their yards talking to each other.
Right.
Kids are up and down the street.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, it's so I mean, I'm seeing neighbors I've never seen before because we were all like the people that you came home and you went inside. You didn't go hang
Right.
out with everybody,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know? And so it's just so interesting to see how things are, how different it is, how astonishingly different it is from
Yeah.
just a month ago.
Right. And when you see people outside, it's not just like, oh yeah, hi. It's like, hi,
How are
I see you, right?
human being?
Human. It's
Will you
like,
talk to me?
I know. It's like extra special, even though it's, at a slight distance, it's still just like the smiles are bigger. It's like, yeah, we're in this together, right? Yeah, I know.
Right.
And I know you're going through this too, right? And so we kind of connect in a strange way.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting. Well, so let's talk about pre-COVID-19. I mean, let's talk about because you have done some really interesting things. You shared with me some classes that you give.
Right. Yes. So, so a few years ago, well, let me backtrack a little bit. I'll lead into this. So I'll just give you the big picture. Sort of in terms of my life and my work, there's sort of two areas that have always driven me. One, what makes music work? What makes it impactful? What makes it good? And how do I learn how to do that? And then two, what makes people tick? I've always been really interested in the science of human behavior, like psychology. And it was actually at one point in my early life, I'm like, well, I love both of these areas. I could go into psychology or I could go into music. Well, music won out just because of my deep love for music, and the discipline it took to really become excellent at a craft. And that was really my deep calling. But my whole life, I've always really been interested in the science around human behavior and how this works, in groups, what makes me tick, what makes other people tick. So over the past few years, I've just sort of had this interest come back to me. And I thought, how can I use what I know as a musician, as a side man in other groups, and as a band leader myself? What are the lessons that I've learned that have to do with how do you build a team or a band that works together? And how do you lead this group, or how do you show up in somebody else's band or group so that you're prepared? I'm like, there's lots of stuff here that deals with psychology and possibility. And I'm really sort of an optimist at heart, trying to really, you know, um, to help people and help groups. And when I taught at Webster for over 20 years in the jazz program there. And I saw my role not as just somebody who gives out information, facts about jazz, but you're almost a coach, a life coach too.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's kind of always sort of been part of my approach to my life and my work, is how do I really help this person, their individual situation? Is there something I can say or offer that will help them get like to the next step where they're like, yeah, that was great. It really helped me. I mean, those are the things that have always sort of driven me.
I find it fascinating. And I honestly, I think a lot of people that do well in this world, that find success in something they love, a lot of that has to do with the fact that they are aware of the psychological side of what's going on.
Yes.
I mean, with me, I mean, I'm in marketing, but I feel like the marketing therapist at times,
Right.
because a lot of what you're looking at when you're working with anyone's business, you start to see other places that, well, we need to maybe work on this a little. Like your marketing is only going to work, you know, if these things are also fixed within the business. Or, and it's
Absolutely.
interesting because I see people that get in their own way.
Oh yeah.
They just get in their own way, and
Oh yeah.
there's they will not listen, and they know better than you. So I'm like, why did you call in the professional just to, I don't understand. And then there's some people that are really willing to take a look at everything and
Yes.
grow from the experience of working with whoever you're working with. So I
Right.
love that you acknowledged and you've seen, like, there's another element to all of this that's going to make this, it's going to take it to a higher and a much more enriching experience for everyone, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I think about this a lot, and that the context of our work is always changing. Where we work, the tasks we have to perform. But the things that never change are the humans that are doing the work,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
So we're universal, how we think and how we believe. It's like, okay, we have the same issues. We have to sort of learn how to get past ourselves, and learn how to grow and have this wider thing. And we have to be honest with ourselves and go, okay, yeah, I got some of that too. So working on yourself is a practice, right? Like looking
Yes.
inside and saying, oh, I have an issue here. And let me take the time to sort of unravel it and work through it. Like, why am I reacting this way? And it's interesting I say the word practice because it's just like practicing an instrument,
Right.
right? If you want to make beautiful music, you have to go through the scales. You have to learn the chords cold, as we say. And it's a discipline where over time you have to really get used to that part of it. You can't just make beautiful music instantly. There's obviously a
Right.
long process. So the metaphor is apt. We have to have these personal practices to sort of unleash our potential, to create whatever we're doing that brings people together, that allows for this greater concept. It's kind of a spiritual practice, really.
No, exactly. It's being in
Yes,
awareness.
exactly.
And so then over the years, like, do you go back and listen to, your first music and see like the growth or the change or where you were at that time?
Yeah, I do. And usually it's not a good experience.
Well, it's like it's like anything, right? I think of like my first job, I'm thinking, what a dork. Why did I think I knew what I was talking about then?
Well, it's interesting though. Um, Writing good music that I think is like really quality and you know, has a good melody, has a good progression, really holds together as a composition. It's just hard. It's not easy to write good music. You can write any kind of music quickly, but to really give it a lot of thought, is always going to be difficult to create that. But I have to say something funny. So I have to admit, I'm a little bit of a pack rat. So like moving around over years, I kind of keep like old cassette tapes and all sorts of old stuff. And my wife and I finally realized, we have to go through all that stuff in the garage and let's just get a dumpster and throw it all in there. And I was like, okay. But there's like a huge box. It still has all these old cassette tapes, right?
Oh my
From like
gosh.
80s and the 90s. And it's like, I don't even know what's on them because I don't have a cassette player anymore. But I kind of remember what's on them. And then there's some early CDs, and I've listened to these. I'm like, I really don't want to listen to these. But every once in a while, I'll find a song that I wrote like a long time ago. And I'll be darned if it still doesn't have a spark to it. So, in fact, just
Oh,
recently I discovered this old song. I'm like, man, let me try this one again. And I was playing through it. I'm like, doggone if that's not one of the best pieces I've ever written. And I wrote it when I was 21 years old. So you never know when something might just pop out that's just got this thing to it. You know, you
I
captured
love
it.
it.
And I think that's really cool because you just never know when something's that's gonna come out and have power. And the other thing I want to talk about is that I'm really excited that a lot of people are going to discover in this time that they are creative, that they've got these
Right.
hidden gifts that hopefully maybe they can allow to come out and just explore and just see what's there. And that's kind of what I believe down deep, is that we all have these hidden abilities to write or compose or just have some sort of creativity inside that's there, that we need to, you know, allow to just sort of come out. And in situations like these, it's an opportunity.
Such an opportunity. It's well, and it's adaptability, right?
Yes,
You know,
yes,
and
great
that's
word.
one of the things that I think about. I mean, I had learned about, you know about EQ and IQ, you know, and I had learned about AQ a few years
Uh-huh.
ago about the adaptability quotient and how important that is this day and age, because changes happen so fast. I mean, nothing as fast as what's happened in this past month, you know, which has been, whoo, you know, talk about fast. But there's I've talked to a lot of people, and I have felt some people just gave up right away. They're like, never mind, I'm done. I can't do anything. And I'm like, no, no, I have ideas for you. There are things you can do. You have to just be willing to adapt right now
Yeah.
so that you can make a go of it. There's absolutely thing. I swear, anybody out there, if you guys don't think there's anything to do, call me.
Yeah.
I will help you
You got a
figure
list.
out. Yeah, I mean, because and I see it. I can see the people that are thriving. We're still holding space for what's going on out there. It's not like we're, you know, like putting our heads in the sand and acting like everything's fine, everything's fine. We're holding space for what's happening, but at the same time, we're realizing this is where we are. You
Mhm.
know, I'm not a healthcare worker. I can't run out and do that, but there are other things I can do to help everyone,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
So that's where, what can you do to help? And then what can you offer right now to support people that can
Yeah.
keep your business going, or, you know, keep your creativity up, or just keep you in a place where you're not going to lose it.
Yeah, that's really great, you know. And so, like you, I'm not a healthcare worker, and kudos and high praise
No
to
kidding.
all those people,
I
right?
can't
It's just
even
they're
fathom.
the new rock stars,
Yeah.
and deservedly so. I mean, it's hard to put in words what they're doing and how important they are. And you know, the question is, well, what am I doing? You know, sure, music, but something as simple as just checking in. I'm just emailing friends, and
Yeah.
you know, and you know, like you've probably done these meetings with FaceTime friend meetings, whether it's, you know, for dinner or happy hour or whatever, and that's great. But just checking in with people has been really important. Just a few words here and there. You know, people just want to hear from you and have somebody say, "Hey, what's going on? I'm thinking of you. How you doing?" You know, that counts too. It's sort of spreading a little bit of compassion, and we
Yeah.
really need that. Yeah.
And especially people that live alone.
Yes.
This is really tough for them right now.
Yes.
And so checking in with those people, because I know if I didn't have my daughter,
Yeah.
I would really, I mean, this would be really difficult, right? So if you know anyone who's living alone, please reach out. In fact, I have a friend, Laurel Clark, and she's doing some workshops on this, some online workshops on sheltering in place when you're alone. What does that look
Mm,
like? How do you get through all this? You know,
right. Good.
and it's amazing to me. Just listening to them, like, what does this feel like to you? You know, my one friend, I called her on Sunday, and she was telling me she was so excited when her neighbor said, do you just want to meet out in the yard and talk? You
Mhm.
know, they're talking over the fence or whatever, you know, but
Yeah.
that was really important to her, to have this person that would be like, yes, talk to me,
Yeah. That's
so
great. Yeah. I know my parents showed up the other day. They're like, "We're in our car outside. We're gonna stand up. You know, come out and we'll talk to you from like 10 feet away." Well, okay, great. How you doing, Mom? You know,
I did
that
the
was really
same
nice.
thing. And
Yeah.
I'm like, hug.
I know.
Can't really hug. So I'm just, I mean, and I think one of the things that I find amazing is the fact that, they're saying like up to 25% of those with coronavirus have no symptoms. This is a
Right.
tricky thing,
Oh, very
right?
tricky.
So you
Yeah.
could be walking around with this thing, have no idea you have it, and you have to be so careful around the other
Right.
people.
That's right. Yeah, that's what makes it so difficult.
Yeah,
So,
it's a tricky little virus, but I think viruses are that way. They're tricky.
yeah.
They can do things.
They-
You can't see them, and they're
Right.
pulling some crap.
Yeah.
So yeah. So tell me about you've. I met you. We talked at one. Steve Knight. Hello, Steve
That's right.
Knight. We're giving you a
Yeah.
shout out.
I
Thank you
love
for
Steve
connecting
too.
Jan and I.
Yeah.
But we met with Steve, and you were sharing with us one of the workshops that you give, which I just thought was fascinating. Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about that workshop.
Sure. So the workshop is called The Hidden Jazz of Teams. And I do this workshop with my wife, Leslie Peters, who is a really wonderful facilitator and author and teacher and speaker. And she's been in this work for many years. And so she thought, and I thought years ago, we thought, there's so many commonalities really between what I'm thinking about in terms of jazz and the sort of people aspect, the psychological aspect. And so over time, I developed this content. And so we've been giving these workshops to various groups over the last, I don't know, couple years or so. And that's when I started getting really serious about it, thinking, wow, this is really great. I love doing it. People are really enjoying this and saying that some of these insights were really different and helped them. So I'm like, okay, so clearly this is something. I got something, and I love this challenge of putting this together, and I'm really working on it a lot. So it's called The Hidden Jazz of Teams. We've given it maybe about 5 or 10 times to various groups. We've done it down at Cortex a number of times, and we've had some great groups come in. And basically, like I said before, I use jazz. I have my guitar, and I demonstrate how I got into music, and why I chose the guitar. And I've got these stories, but I bring it back to what's the sort of hidden meaning behind jazz, and how does it help people in their work and in their life. And so they've been going really well. I've gotten new clients from doing these sort of open workshops, and I was starting to get a bunch of calendar dates. Then boom, everything sort of stopped.
Yep.
So the challenge now is to how can I take some of that content and put it out in video form, so that people can still take some of this and have it be helpful to them. And then ultimately, when we start to get outside and have more socializing again, then I'll sort of pick up where I left off. But it's been great. I mean, I never thought I'd have so much fun using music sort of in this context to really be teaching, which is another one of my passions that I sort of discovered along the way. I didn't know I would love it, but I've always loved teaching.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, when things get somewhat, I don't think we'll ever get back to normal, what we thought of as normal, but when things get to where we actually get to go see people again, then
yes,
I would love to know about your workshops.
Okay. Yeah, I would love to have you come. So by the way, big announcement. I just launched a new website that explains a lot of what I do. I actually have 2 websites right now. One sort of has my music content, and that's danrubrightmusic.com.
Okay.
And the one that just launched today really deals with this new area where I'm teaching and using jazz as a metaphor. And that's dan-rubright.com.
Gotcha. So
all right.
cool. So
a little different, but yay, today's launch day.
Right? Because if this wouldn't have happened, you probably would be well into me like, I got to do a website. I got to do a website. I got to do a website.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So yay. So can I ask you some kind of wacky questions?
Yeah, give me some wacky questions.
Not too wacky. They're all things that I'm sure you can answer.
I know I'm not being wacky enough, so go ahead.
Yeah, we need some wackiness. So do you have a dream gig?
Ooh, a dream gig. My dream gig always was being like a forest ranger, so that I'm a huge hiker, And I've
Really?
always wanted to just be outside like every day, all day, like hiking. And so something along those lines, yes.
How
Maybe
cool.
here it is. No, a tour guide, like in some state park somewhere where I could just walk people around, teach them, and enjoy the fresh air and just be in nature.
I'll be done. That probably has come up to you a lot lately.
Yeah, actually,
I
yes.
want to go outside.
I know, it's killing me.
I love it. Okay, so when was the last time that you amazed yourself?
The last time that I amazed myself, you know, the thing that comes right off the bat is when I rediscovered this acoustic guitar,
Yeah.
and I realized that it's a fantastic guitar, and I just was like, I didn't know that I actually could change that instrument by how I played that instrument. That was when I made that. I think that's the most amazing thing that happened in the last few days, I think.
And I think that's so cool, especially you're at your own house. It's
Yeah,
how long have you had this guitar?
I've had it maybe I don't know, maybe a year.
So it's been
Yeah,
sitting there, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that
yeah,
I'm gonna do this.
right. Yeah,
I love it.
I was trying to force it into what I wanted it to be, and I really needed to realize, oh, I have to let it be what it wants to be.
Gotcha,
Yeah,
gotcha. I love
yeah.
it. Okay, so I need to know the meaning behind the name Wire Pilots.
Oh my gosh. So, okay, that's a group that I formed with my brother, percussionist Ted Rubright,
Okay.
about 10 years ago. And I'm always afraid when people ask me that question because
I'm sorry.
my brother actually came up with it.
Okay.
So he's a visual artist, and he's a great musician and an artist himself, and writer, songwriter. So he came up with the name, and I don't exactly know where he came up with it. I'm not sure, but I got to tell you this. So I was looking through some old slides yesterday, and like really old, like from when we were kids. And I was like maybe 4 years old, and he was probably 6 years old. And this was back in Kirkwood, and
Okay.
like so these are really old pictures. And I had just gotten a go-kart, like this little red go-kart.
Ooh,
And it was one
cool.
of these ones that like it's not wire, but it's kind of like sort of see-through. You can see all the things. And I'm like,
Gotcha.
oh my gosh, that is the ultimate picture for the wire pilots.
No
And I'm sitting in
kidding.
it, and my brother's like, you know, standing behind me, smiling, patting my back. And I'm like, okay, that is the wire pilots in a nutshell.
There's
Because
the
it's all
album
about
cover.
Ted and Dan. You know how it started? Like we would get together. He's a classical musician by training,
Okay.
but growing up, he played drums and percussion. And so I would hear him play in the basement. And then when I got into the guitar, I'd go down and we would just jam forever. And we would just make stuff up, just make it up. And then he sort of went his own way, and I sort of went my own way. And then about 10 years ago, we're like, you know, let's just get back and start jamming like we used to jam. And he said, okay, we're called the Wire Pilots. I'm like, that sounds good to me. Let's just go with it. So anyway,
So you've
that's kind of the
never
story of the
asked
Wire
them?
Pilots. And I have to admit a little bit of ignorance.
Have you
Yes,
ever just asked them?
I have. And I think I forgot the answer.
So maybe it was just an inspiring thing
That's
and right in
great.
the
Isn't that
moment.
impressive, isn't it? I don't really know why we're called the Wire Pilots.
Well, he's your brother. Why listen to anything he says, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love
We
it.
had to say we had a rock group. We were kind of alternative rock group back in the late 80s and
And
early
what
90s.
was it
I'm really
called?
dating myself now. And we were called Red Weather. And you're
Ooh.
like, well, where did you get the name Red Weather? I do know the answer to that one. It's actually from a Wallace Stevens poem. We were big poetry nerds. And there was
Okay.
one poem where there was an old sailor drunk, dreaming of tigers in red weather. And then that image just
Ah.
stuck. We're like, well, that's kind of cool. Let's just grab it.
Let's
So
call her back.
there,
And
I've got a
there's
story for you.
I like that. I see. Had
Okay.
I known the red
Yeah.
weather, I would have asked.
Let me give you the story of how I came up with my other jazz group, the Dan Rubright group.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just kidding.
That one was a stretch. It was so
That was a
difficult to
stretch,
come up with
yeah.
it. I just, oh, I love it. Well, thank you so much, sir. I
Oh,
appreciate
thank
your
you.
time today, and everybody knows where to learn more about you
Yes,
and hear more of your music. And once you get to be out and about
yes, yeah.
and doing shows again, people can actually come see you.
I know. I can't wait. So until then, my friend, um,
Exactly.
keep on carrying on and spread the word like you're doing. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. And for everybody
Okay.
out there, you've been listening to MichMash Podcast. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Bye. Love you.